Have you ever noticed how every time a brand starts falling out of favor, suddenly influencers are unboxing the wildest, most extravagant gifts? And lately, it feels like everyone's handing out $30,000 Birkin bags like they're press kits. But is it strategy or desperation? Today, we're deep diving into the psychology of luxury gifting, influencer culture, and the real reason brands are sending five-figure handbags to creators in hopes of salvaging their relevance. Welcome back to GTWJ, the place where fashion thinks deeper. Let's start here. Influencer gifting has always been about control. It's less about generosity and more about subtly buying attention, loyalty, and exclusivity. But in 2025, it's escalated into a spectacle. Birkin bags being casually gifted to micro-influencers with 80,000 followers. Tarte Cosmetics flying TikTokers business class to the Maldives while their core customers get an Instagram story repost at best. When Michaela Nogueira unboxed her Hermes Birkin on TikTok, gifted from a beauty brand she barely even tags anymore, the internet asked one question: can a wealthy influencer even be genuinely shocked? Or is the entire performance part of the transaction? The psychology here runs deep. In luxury culture, gifting isn't just a marketing tactic, it's a status game. The brand signals its own power by showing it can afford to casually drop $30,000 on a PR stunt. The influencer signals their perceived importance by publicly receiving it, and their followers are manipulated into associating proximity to luxury with trustworthiness and expertise. And let's talk about tier. Their Birkin gifting to influencers stirred up controversy because it exposed what we weren't supposed to see, that bags of that status are no longer reserved for the discreet elite. They're now tools in marketing warfare. That exclusivity Hermes has so carefully protected, it gets diluted every time a bag meant to be earned is handed out in an unboxing video. There's another layer too. Micro-influencers. Brands have realized smaller creators deliver higher engagement and trust with niche audiences. So extravagant gifting has trickled down, creating this bizarre online economy where creators curate shock, tears, and gratitude on camera because they know the performance is part of securing the next gift. Is it strategy? 100%. But it's also manipulation dressed up as generosity. Because no brand sends a $30,000 bag without expecting narrative control in return. And it creates an environment where criticism disappears and honesty gets traded for product. And here's the bigger issue. Should brands be rewarding loyal customers instead? The people who've spent their own money, engaged for years, and championed these products long before an influencer got that overnight flight in Birkin. The irony is, luxury houses claim to sell exclusivity and authenticity, but their influencer PR culture reveals the opposite. Tarte Cosmetics is a perfect example. Their wild gifting trips are less about product launches and more about spectacle. It's a display of who's in and who's out, and it works because we're wired to want proximity to social currency. The brand isn't selling you mascara, it's selling you a fantasy of inclusion. And when PR becomes performance, when a $30,000 bag is positioned as a spontaneous gift, it blurs the line between organic influence and orchestrated advertising. That's not transparency, that's strategy disguised as authenticity. So here's the truth. Extravagant gifts don't equal brand loyalty. They equal temporary brand visibility. And audiences are catching on. The real long game belongs to brands who can build authentic relationships without needing to buy them. If you love fashion deep dives, luxury psychology, and industry truth no one else will say, follow us on Instagram at GTWJmag and hit subscribe, because this is the conversation fashion's been avoiding. GTWJ, where fashion thinks deeper. And let's unpack what this means for the luxury market long term. Because here's the thing no brand strategist wants to say out loud. When luxury houses start chasing virality instead of cultivating mystique, they quietly devalue their own brand equity. For decades, what made a Birkin wasn't just the craftsmanship or price tag, it was the unattainability. It was the whispered wait lists, the private showings, and the elite clientele you'd never see parading their bags on TikTok. The moment brands start tossing them into influencer PR packages, they move from symbols of discreet wealth to props in a marketing circus. And the damage isn't immediate, it's cultural. The more visible these bags become in the hands of influencers with inconsistent brand alignment, the more their symbolic power erodes. It's no longer about the Hermes woman, the one with old money discretion and generational access. It's about who can generate the most engagement this week. This creates what I call the access illusion. On the surface, it feels like luxury is becoming more inclusive, but in reality, it's being repackaged for mass consumption through curated, monetized moments. The audience is manipulated into believing proximity to luxury is achievable through parasocial relationships with influencers, not by merit or legacy. And you can see it happening everywhere. Dior gifting custom trunks to TikTokers who'd never shop at Dior otherwise. PR invites to Paris shows for influencers whose audiences don't buy couture but will repost a front row selfie. Even brands like Tarte using luxury gifting culture tactics outside their price bracket to create false association with prestige. But here's what's interesting. Studies in consumer psychology show that when audiences see too much of something, its perceived value drops. The Birkin that felt untouchable 5 years ago now appears in a weekly "What I Got in PR" haul. The scarcity that drove its desirability gets diluted, and with it, so does its cultural cachet. And this has a ripple effect. High net worth consumers, the ones who built these brands, quietly disengage. They move towards smaller, lesser-known ateliers, get discreet craftsmanship brands like Valextra, Moynat, and Loro Piana. Meanwhile, mass audiences engage with the influencer fantasy, but don't convert into loyal, long-term luxury consumers. Which brings us back to the ultimate question. Should brands stop gifting influencers and start rewarding loyal customers? Because let's be honest, the woman who's spent $150,000 with a brand over the last decade is rarely the one receiving the $30,000 Birkin as a thank you. That disconnect is why brand loyalty in luxury is shifting and why legacy houses are scrambling to stay culturally relevant. This whole conversation also exposes a deeper problem in influencer culture. When PR becomes performance, it strips authenticity from both the creator and the brand. A gifted Birkin is no longer a sign of personal style or status. It's a business transaction with emotional theatrics attached, and audiences are starting to read between the lines. So what's the future of luxury gifting? Quiet, intimate, and relationship-driven. Because the next generation of wealth is already signaling they value discretion, uniqueness, and earned exclusivity over performative virality. The brands that'll win aren't the ones handing out Birkins on TikTok. They're the ones creating private client experiences you'll never see posted, building real communities offline, and crafting desire through absence, not abundance. And as always, if you're here for this kind of unfiltered luxury analysis and fashion psychology no one else will say, follow us on Instagram at GTWJmag and subscribe, because on this channel, we don't just watch trends. We unpack what they mean, where fashion thinks deeper.